Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Hope you guys been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. Excuse me for just the couple of days of absence. I just released a short film, so I just wanted to kind of let that sit for a little bit. I will be putting out a video, hopefully Friday, that will be kind of detailing a little bit of the kind of just the process that went into making it. So hopefully you guys will check out that video when it comes out. But we are here on another movie review. And sorry for the very, very late news roundup. I will try to be editing it tonight because I was supposed to release it today, but I just got really busy. So I will release it tomorrow. So apologies for the very, very late video on that. But yeah, we are back with another movie review and just got back from seeing this. So yeah, let's dive right on in. So the film that we're going to be discussing today is The Phoenician Scheme, which was written and directed by Wes Anderson. It stars a ton of people. Benicio del Toro, Mia Thurpaltz, probably butchered the hell out of that name. I apologize. Thera Plelton, I think that's how you say it. Michael Cera, Riz Ahmed, Tom Hanks, Bryan Cranston, Jeffrey Wright, Scarlett Johansson, Benedict Cumberbatch, Rupert Friend, and Bill Murray, as amongst other people here and there, Willem Dafoe. And it is another Wes Anderson feature. Obviously, we've talked Wes Anderson before on this channel a couple of times. Films of which that you guys know of him for films like Grand Budapest Hotel, Isle of Dogs, Fantastic Mr. Fox, most recently, of course, Asteroid City, which we discussed on this channel. And this is now his latest. So this is a story of a man named Zissa Corda, who is played by Benicio del Toro, and he is a arms dealer. He is also I guess you could call an entrepreneur, because he has these like grand plans. Once they're unveiled, of course, they kind of come to fruition. That of which that kind of illustrate of a utopia and sorts, whatever. And he is trying to avoid assassination attempts here, left and right, and he crafts a new plan, that which of course is the Phoenician Scheme, as the title suggests, and he enlists a couple of people around him, Mia and Michael Cera specifically, to help guide him through the underground, talking to specific people here and there in relation to helping build up this empire, and to also whittle out any treacheries or establishing relationships that are there or not. And whilst this is all happening, he is avoiding assassination attempts. He is also avoiding death as it were, but also gaining a sense of just death itself through the multiple dealings with a religious figure of sorts throughout the film. So, as I've illustrated before in my discussion of Wes Anderson, I must say for the record also I'm a little bit tired. I literally went from surfing for like 3 or 4 hours to then going to the theater. As in between I had a little meal, so I'm a little but I did keep my focus obviously on watching this movie. And the thing I will say about Wes Anderson, I've illustrated before, is that he is a hit or miss for me. I wasn't particularly fond of Asteroid City. I had my issues there. I found it to be quite distant, and felt a lot of its time it was a bit wordy and didn't feel as substantial as his other films were when it came to laying out his dialogue. And some of those issues, unfortunately, I feel extend here, though with a couple exceptions. I will say that the performances here I found to be very compelling. A lot of noticeable point of laughter as well, specifically within the performances themselves. Less so, I feel, with the directing. There's 2 key moments that made me laugh, one of which involved Jeffrey Wright and just how he says something, and then one of which I will say is also to do with the makeup department in the case of Bill Murray and how he looks in the movie. Those 2 points specifically made me laugh quite a bit. And generally with how the performances are with Tom Hanks, Bryan Cranston, there are it seems as though they themselves are also having fun in the world that Wes Anderson is creating. And per the world that Wes Anderson creates, always, it is also visually stunning. Just how he lays out all of his the details, and just by framing how everything looks, it's always well organized and just very formal in its presentation, and it's extremely welcomed. It always looks very, very interesting and very, very stunning. But as I've illustrated before, I've had my issues with him in the past, and my issues have always been about resonance and about my overall connections to things. And unfortunately, I feel that the same thing is happening here. And it's really odd this time around because, as I've said, this film is about essentially that of death, and about someone's avoidance of death, their inability to, or their attempts to trying to avoid it, and the dealings of that, psychologically. And I feel that the structure is thematically playing to that. It is thematically organized. That's the way I'll say it. And of course, matching in the style and the spirit of Wes Anderson himself. But I feel as though, once again, there is just a lack of development and a lack of resonance, really. There's a lack of where I just can understand everybody's motivations, to where I feel that the characters are not just tools or visual tools for Wes Anderson to illustrate a specific style or to flex a style once again. And there just feels as though there isn't a point in character, but more in a point of development and gags, developments and visual illustrations, and I'm just not that as compelled by that, and it really is chasing its own tail. For a lot of its time, it's a film that is wishing to speak around, just kind of, and I get it, it's kind of deliberate in how it is playing to the specific idea of a person trying to avoid death. I get it, and by the vibe of how Wes Anderson operates in, I get by in that how you can find some level of humor within that, and at some points it is earnest in that. But again, I just wish that there was a point in distinction within characterizations. I wish that there was a point of where I can distinguish who is who and not just by character name. I wish that there was a sense of real depth to the worlds that he creates outside of a visual illustration. And it's just not the case here again, unfortunately. And again, very noticeable distance, a really, really wordy screenplay. Again, I don't see the point in this, the spirit of how he operates in a lot of the times in this really rambly type of projection. Sometimes it feels earnest because in a case like Grand Budapest Hotel, it feels as though the dialogue it is actually moving things around. With this, it just feels as though that we are not being invited in. It feels as though that it's just talking again in this specific motion. And I get in this specific point, there is a thematic understanding to that. But by narrative structure, by overall just general interest, it just doesn't help. And it just creates, again, that distance that I'm always discovering within Wes Anderson's work. Very much so recently in his work. I found it in Asteroid City, and I'm also now finding it here. It's to say that the more that I see of Wes Anderson, the more artificial he is actually becoming to me. He's kind of becoming that of a Nolan, in that Nolan's spirit is that within visual illustration. And Wes Anderson operates in the very same ways. The key differences, though, is that how Nolan actually utilizes that visual illustration. It is actually to heighten and create a sense of depth that is to also in some ways make up for a lack of characterizations and a lack of developments or a lack of, real resonance. In the case of Wes Anderson's work, it feels as though that he's leaning more into the visual illustrations, just allowing frames to kind of take priority and not giving it so to where the framing actually is quite expressive and quite kind of pushing this story along, giving a narrative point to it. It just feels though that it's there for either one, to give the jokes, to provide the humor, or two, to just kind of again, kind of chasing its own tail, just kind of just in a self-indulgent type of manner. So So I can't say that I hated it. Like I said, there are things about it that I still find interesting. The performances, I found it to be funny. Visually, it is quite stunning. But there are things about Wes Anderson fundamentally that I'm finding to be flawed, redundant, and I'm wishing that he would just stretch out and flex to maybe do something just fundamentally different. Because in the case of Wes Anderson, he just is very content to how he operates, and I'm feeling as though the flavor of that is starting to become rather stale and more artificial as time goes on. So I didn't hate it, but I am just there's always a dipping point with me with Wes Anderson, and I wish that I never found that every single time. Even in the films of which that I really like, like Grand Budapest Hotel, there's always that point that I dip. And in recent years with Wes Anderson, that dip has been coming sooner than later. I think that that's kind of illustrative, especially when the films tend to be one and the same. Maybe there's something there that needs to change. So yeah, so there's my thoughts on the Phoenician Scheme. I think it's okay. I think that if you are a fan of Wes Anderson, if you just adore his style, I think that then you might get a kick out of this. But if you're like me and you're just you're picking up on the same sort of manners, the same sort of styles, the same sort of deliveries, it just becomes a little stale. It doesn't feel as though that it is earnest. It just feels as though that it's tagged on at this point. And I'm not entirely sure if I will invest into the next feature of Wes Anderson. I'm not entirely sure. We'll have to wait and see. But those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on the Phoenician Scheme if you guys have seen it. Your guys' thoughts, of course, on Wes Anderson as a filmmaker. I feel like he's kind of a bit of a... I mean, I know that cinephiles, love him. But I feel as though that his overall craftsmanship is kind of in a point of debate, I feel. I don't know. Let me know. Is that going on in the film community? I feel like that's a kind of a thing. But let me know your thoughts on Wes Anderson and your thoughts on this film specifically, if you guys have seen it, in the comment section below. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.